A year and a bit ago, when it became apparent that all Chevrolet Bolt EVs were susceptible to a manufacturing defect in their battery pack that could, in exceptional circumstances, cause their battery packs to catch fire, many of us who owned a Chevrolet Bolt EV found ourselves asking the same question. Do we keep the car and trust a fix is made available? Or do we seek a buyback or maybe a trade-in for something else? Some people examined the evidence surrounding the fires, calculated the probability of suffering a catastrophic failure in the battery pack, and decided they didn't need to worry. Others, like myself and my wife, decided that we'd at least initially wait it out to see what other solutions were offered. And some folks did absolutely everything they could to get rid of their Bolt EVs as quickly as humanly possible, either asking for a buyback or trading it in quickly for something else. And yes, while my wife and I did ultimately get in line for a buyback for both of our Bolt EVs when GM's initial proposed solutions weren't to our liking, only then to be offered a battery replacement before the buybacks were processed, there was a pretty long and convoluted conversation that we kept coming back to again and again and again. And I know we weren't alone. What other EVs are available to replace our Bolts with? See, while I don't want to make this a love letter to the Bolt EV, yeah, I do still love my little not quite a hot hatch, there's not a lot of cars in North America that are similar in size and similar in specs. And for those looking for an alternative for a Chevrolet Bolt EV a year ago, well, there were really only one or two choices in the new car market, and frankly, barely anything in the used car market. Of course, if you had the money, you could upgrade to a brand new crossover like the Volkswagen ID4, the Tesla Model Y, or Ford Mustang Mach-E. But none of those crossovers directly compete against the smaller Bolt EV, because they're crossovers, not hatchbacks. Each one is larger, heavier, and in their own way, more complex than the European-influenced design of the Bolt EV. And look, I know that crossovers and their big brothers, the SUV, are the largest growing automotive segment in the world today, with people flocking to them from pretty much every other type of vehicle. And I know that automakers spend billions of dollars every year trying to figure out what customers want, or rather, what they think customers can be persuaded to buy. But, well, here's the thing. I think that we need fewer electric crossovers and SUVs and more electric car choice that caters to the forgotten segment of runabouts, hatchbacks, and small sedans. And today, I'm going to tell you why that's true, because despite what you might think, there are some really good, practical reasons for being less crossover mad. First, though, it is that time when I ask you to hit subscribe, click the bell icon, and set your notification preferences for this channel. In doing all three, you not only make sure you find out when our next video goes live, yay, but you also help the algorithm, which in turn helps the channel grow. And if you'd like to support us financially, then I will tell you how to at the end of this video. As I said in the introduction, the majority of new electric cars coming to market today fit into the crossover category. Although, to be fair, some vehicles feel like they are called crossovers because that is what manufacturers want them to be known as, because in return, automakers know that using the word crossover can increase the desirability and sticker price of a vehicle overnight. Before I get to the reasons why we need alternatives to EV crossovers, though, let's look at some of the reasons EV crossovers have become so popular, because it does go deeper than this is the most popular vehicle style in the world right now. Crossovers tend to sit higher up than hatchbacks or sedans, giving their drivers a much more commanding view of the road ahead. And automakers cunningly use the crossover moniker to excuse the fact that most EVs need to have a higher seating position than an internal combustion engine vehicle because it's common for battery packs to sit under the passenger compartment floor. Even if the resulting vehicle's ground clearance is less than it would be for some other regular vehicles. Ford Mustang Mach-E, I'm looking at you. If the driver is sitting up pretty high and pretty, then the vehicle gets called a crossover. And despite the fact that the original crossovers, the OGs, the Honda CR-V and RAV4 from the late 90s, were nice, compact affairs with no-nonsense interiors and plenty of storage capacity, today's crossovers are much larger. And the larger the vehicle, the more easily automakers can fit in a nice large battery pack for nice long distance travel. And because crossovers are born out of this spiritual space occupied by SUVs, it doesn't look out of place when a crossover gets a long wheelbase and short overhangs, which maximises the battery space available between the front and rear axles. But let's stop for a moment, because crossovers have become something of an engineered success story. They're basically popular because the auto industry has created a narrative that larger vehicles are safer vehicles, and if you are a parent with a child, you want a massive, safe vehicle to keep your family safe. And yes, while taller vehicles are less likely to end up under something else in an accident, they're not great for pedestrians, and frankly, one look at the safety that Tesla has achieved with its Model 3 sedan should tell you that you don't have to own a crossover to have a safe car. Which brings me to the reasons why not a crossover. First, crossovers aren't as efficient as, say, a small hatchback or a sedan, at least generally. Their larger vehicles tend to have more frontal area, and thus they are less aerodynamic. And the less aerodynamic they are, the less energy efficient they are, meaning you need a larger battery pack for a given range when compared with a smaller vehicle that might have a more svelte profile and ride a lot closer to the ground. But the larger a vehicle is, the larger its wheels also have to be, because a large vehicle tends to be a heavier vehicle, and thus it needs wider, bigger tyres to give it decent ride and handling. But wider tyres and heavier bodies also mean more energy used to push the car down the road, which again means less efficient use of the power in the car's battery pack. Now, I think I can guess what you're going to say. You're going to say that crossovers are better because they can store more inside them, and that's really what we all want. Plus, they can go a long way per charge. But that last bit, can they really? My Chevrolet Bolt EV, with its upgraded 66 kilowatt-hour battery pack, can theoretically, according to the EPA, do 250 miles, 402 kilometers per charge, while the EPA says the Volkswagen ID.4 Pro rear-wheel drive, which has an 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack, can manage 260 miles, 418 kilometers per charge. Sure, the Bolt's Achilles heel is the fact it has terribly slow DC quick charging, but there are other EVs out there that aren't the Bolt which also do far more with their battery pack than your average crossover can. The Nissan Leaf and Kia e-Niro both have far better energy efficiency than your average mid-sized brand new crossover EV on the market today, and while Kia likes to call the e-Niro a crossover, it really is closer to a wagon in terms of its dimensions, size, and spiritual vibe. And honestly, if we want more people to go electric, we do need to be building smaller, more efficient vehicles to spread those batteries about a bit. So let's talk size. While crossovers might fit well in countries with wide roads and wider parking spaces, I'm looking at you, USA, they suck in countries where the roads are more modestly sized. Many crossover EVs that appear just fine in North America are an absolute nightmare to park in Europe, where they are considered pretty freaking large. Live in a major metropolitan area, be it in the city or suburbia, and you might actually find a smaller EV is easier to get around in, especially if you have to commute and park in a tight garage. Here on the west coast of the US, we have plenty of space, but when I used to have an office in downtown Portland, I loved parking my Bolt EV in a parking garage where it could easily handle the tight turns and tight parking spaces. But whenever we had a press car on loan that was larger in sizing and I tried to park in the same garage, It was hell. And yes, to be clear, after owning a first-generation OG RAV4 EV crossover, I can tell you that even the Bolt felt large to start with. And look, I know some people also prefer a larger car, but many also prefer a smaller car. I don't think there is a single team member on this channel who likes the idea of a massive car when a smaller, more compact one would suffice, especially when commuting around town. I mean, you only have to look at some of the cars we've collectively owned in the past. Fiat 500s, Morris Minors, G-Whizzers and more, and you'll see that we have tended towards more compact cars than larger ones. And yeah, I know, I used to own a Volvo 240, purchased specifically when I adopted kids and we had a huge amount of things to move from their foster home to our home. And I also know that I'm on the order books for a Ford F-150 Lightning Lariat, which is to help alleviate the challenges of carrying large amounts of production equipment to events. But when given the chance, I am going to take a small car if I want to go out and I want to enjoy driving for driving's sake. But the final thing I want to bring up is the price. Crossovers tend to be more expensive than compact and more efficient hatchbacks and sedans. And because automakers are obsessed with trying to chase that one world leader, Tesla, they are fixated on range and performance above cost and approachability. Cars are jammed full of technology with over-the-air updates and promise range in excess of what most people's bladders can comfortably manage, while more affordable and more compact designs are being ignored, even if they crash test well. Given that most people only use their car to commute to and from work every day, run a few errands, and maybe occasionally make trips at the weekend, the majority of crossover EVs in use today aren't ever really pushed close to their limits. Yet in many markets, they are quickly becoming the only option for those wanting to go electric, often with a massive price tag. Luckily, the rest of the world isn't like North America. European markets and Asian markets, for example, are far more nuanced and varied, with small electric hatchbacks replacing gasoline hatchbacks as runabouts and affordable transport for many households. Their cars, like the Volkswagen e-Up, prove that small, electrified cars do have an essential part to play in helping transition the world off of fossil fuels. And I just wish other markets would learn that lesson too. And some markets even get wagons with electric drivetrains as well. I should note that wagons often carry as much as a crossover can, but tend to be far more energy efficient, easier to park, easier to drive, and they tend to be cheaper too. Do you think that the electric vehicle world needs more variety? Are you fed up with every new EV either being a crossover or an SUV? And would you like to see more hatchbacks, wagons and sedans added to the mix? Leave your thoughts below. That's it for today. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to leave your thoughts below or in our free to join Discord chat room. There are links in the description. Don't forget that this channel produces videos every single day on the network for you to enjoy, ranging from deep dives and features to tutorials, unboxings, reviews, and musings like this video. And if you want the most comprehensive roundup of all of the news in the EV world on a weekly basis, check out our TEN news show every Saturday. I even wear a blazer. And if you haven't already, do make sure you've subscribed to this channel and our other channel, Transport Evolved Take 2. Give the bell a ring to make sure you're told when our next video goes live, and make sure your preferences are set so you get those notifications. Thanks on behalf of the entire crew go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month supporters, Chris Maxwell, Bennett Elder, Brian Newton, Dave Kitchen, Michael Goad, Ricky Leon, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahota, Brophy Wolf, Tesla in the Gong, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Rory Litwin, Anonymous Freak, Jim Burness, Chris Asentar and Denny Hyde. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters. They are Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Joe Bresney, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, Matthew Drobnak, John Lyons, Christopher Lee Jones, Andrew Glenn, Paul Conway, Laura Reynolds, Ellery Hensley, and last but not least, Ian. If you would like to join that amazing family of supporters, you can do so by following the links below to Patreon, hitting the join button to support us on YouTube, or showing us your support through Ko-fi, Bitcoin, or buying some cool swag like this t-shirt from our swag store. And know that if you're unable to support us financially in this tough time, just know that watching the video and sharing it on social media with your friends, family, and colleagues really makes a difference to us and to the ad revenue. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.